The affirmative side alleged that the U.S. should replace the Electoral College with national popular vote for the following reasons. For one, the possibility of electing a minority president. Secondly, the risk of so-called faithless electors. Thirdly, because the role of the Electoral College depresses voter turnout. And lastly, because it fails to accurately reflect the national popular will. However, there is much controversy over the Electoral College, but I'm going to try to prove to you today that the Electoral College is more beneficial because there are certain flaws with these reasons to even change it. So for one, I'm going to talk about the possibility of electing a minority president. So the affirmative side said that this occurred 3 times, when in fact, according to America.gov, 4 presidents have been elected in this manner, which were John Quincy Adams in 1824, Rutherford B. Hayes in 1876, Benjamin Harrison in 1888, and George W. Bush in 2000. And actually in 1824 it occurred because John Quincy actually lost popular and electoral, and he was actually made the president by the House of Representatives, not the actual Electoral College. So for the possibility of electing a minority president, if you include 1824, the Fallujah election, this actually occurs only 7.1% of the time. It's only out of 56 elections as of 2008, it's only occurred 4 times. So that's a very low percentage. That's not enough to say that we should abolish the whole system because of that little amount. That's like less than 10%. I looked at the gaps between popular and vote for the time when the Electoral College caused the minority president to actually win. And like, for example, according to UShistory.com, in 1824, there were 320,744 voters, and the difference between popular vote was only 37,237. And in 1876, there were over 8 million voters. The difference was 254,235. In 1888, there were over 10 million voters. The difference was 89,596. And in 2000, over 100 million voters. The difference was 532,994. So basically, like, they weren't necessarily like 30%, like 70%. They were pretty close. I mean, compared to how many people were actually voting. And then her second claim was basically that the Electoral College has a risk of faithless electors. However, I found that from the jurist.law from Pitt University that various politicians and scholars dismiss these prospects as preposterous. They point out that faithless electors have cost only 9 of the 291 electoral votes recorded since 1796, which we calculated, which is about 0.04%. And also, none of the times that a faithless elector occurred did the popular vote contradict the electoral vote. So basically, like, the popular vote contradicted the electoral vote in 1824, 1876, 1888, and 2000. And the years that we had faithless electors were 1796, 1820, 1948, 1956, 1960, 1968, 1972, 1976 to 1988. So basically, the years that we had a discrepancy between the Electoral College and popular vote weren't even the years when we had faithless electors. So I was going to kind of dismiss that thing. So in continuation, basically there's also a disincentive to even be a faithless elector because you they are actually they're chosen not only for their loyalty but because they take their responsibilities seriously. And this almost never happens. It last occurred in 1988, and it doesn't have an effect on the actual. It didn't have an effect on the election. Another claim that she said was that it depresses voter turnout. And in this, I have an example when in that there are other significant factors in voter turnout. Like, for example, when the voting age was lowered from 21 to 18 in 1972. Since like the youth have the lowest rates, like that accounts for the third of the lower rates since 1968. So basically, it's not necessarily just like the Electoral College, but because we have like more like people that are younger that were voting, and they technically don't always vote most anyways. And then also, I have another example is like the party, it's called the party machine era, which is from 1828 to 1896, and they actually had a turnout rate of like 80% nationally, which is very high. So it basically stays within like a 10 percentage point difference. So it's not just basically because of like the Electoral College, and also we've had the Electoral College since the beginning of like the Constitution. So there's really no before and after. And then her last claim was basically that it doesn't reflect popular will, and this is somewhat true, but also like you have to take into consideration like the Electoral College was made to take into account the smaller versus the bigger states, because if we had a national popular vote, like I mean the big states would just dominate, and then the little states wouldn't really get a lot of the attention, and their vote wouldn't really count as much because they wouldn't have this like big of a population. Like for example, according to Newsmax.com, in 1998, the combined voting age of all the smaller states was 3,199,000 of which was for Alaska, Delaware, District of Columbia, North Dakota, South Dakota, Vermont, and Wyoming. But they still were able to carry the same voting strength in the Electoral College against Florida, which had 9,614 people, and that was like 21 electoral votes. So basically, it kind of keeps it equal. And then another reason why the Electoral College does work is because it protects smaller states, it preserves our federalism system, and it has written.